Kiefer Sherwood and the players who take the hard road in the NHL. Today, the San Jose Sharks announced Kiefer Sherwood's 5-year contract extension, and within minutes, the news was everywhere across hockey social media and YouTube. The reaction has been fairly predictable. Some people think that the contract is too large. Others think that it is fair value. There is already debate about whether he truly belongs in a top six role, and whether it's really appropriate to pay this sort of money to a bottom sixer. These sorts of arguments are normal whenever a deal like this is announced, but the reason I wanted to talk about Sherwood actually connects to another video I made a while back about Collin Graf. When I watch hockey, I'm not only interested in the games themselves, I'm also interested in the culture of the sport, the structure of the league, and the ecosystem that produces different kinds of players. Collin Graf is an example of that kind of story, the adaptable, quiet achiever who has to prove himself again and again at every level. Sherwood represents another version of that same idea. In other words, this is one of those videos where it might sound like I'm talking about one individual player, but actually I'm not really doing that. Sherwood is simply a very useful example. What I am very interested in is the type of player he represents and the path that type of player has to take through the league. If you listen to hockey media and podcasts, they usually like to focus on one kind of story. A young player who appears on the radar early. Scouts follow him for years. By the time he reaches the NHL, everyone already expects greatness. Think Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby, Connor Bedard, Macklin Celebrini, possibly Gavin McKenna. The players I've mentioned arrive with huge attention and a massive amount of expectation, and a clear path to NHL stardom if they don't crumble under the pressure. Kiefer Sherwood's path to the NHL has looked nothing like that. Sherwood is 30 years old. He was never drafted. His career has taken him through several organizations, several AHL teams, and years of uncertainty before finally arriving at a long-term NHL contract. For most of that time, his goal was not becoming a star. It was simply staying in the league long enough to prove that he belonged. Sherwood said it himself today during recent media availability, in which the Sharks made him answer media questions for 30 minutes from his home. He said, "Before that, I was always just trying to scratch and claw to make it." That sentence explains a great deal about the way he plays. When fans talk about Sherwood, they usually start with the same observation. He works. He forechecks hard, chases loose pucks, finishes checks, and plays the same style whether his team is winning comfortably or struggling through a difficult stretch. Sherwood summed up his approach in a line that almost sounds like a personal rule. "I just try to show up every day and put my work boots on, rinse and repeat." To understand that, it helps to look at the path that brought him here. He started in the USHL with the Youngstown Phantoms. He spent 3 seasons there developing as an offensive forward before moving on to Miami University in Ohio. From 2015 to 2018, he played NCAA hockey with Miami and quietly produced strong numbers, finishing his college career with 86 points in 106 games. Even with that production, he went through 3 NHL drafts without being selected. His opportunity finally arrived in March 2018, when the Anaheim Ducks signed him as an undrafted free agent. That signing started the professional phase of a career that would involve constant movement between leagues. During his first 2 seasons in the Anaheim organization, Sherwood split time between the NHL club and the Ducks' AHL affiliate, the San Diego Gulls. In the 2018 to 2019 season, he appeared in 50 NHL games while also playing significant time in the American Hockey League. It was the kind of season that many depth players experience early in their careers, a chance to taste the NHL, followed by long stretches proving themselves again in the minors. It must have been soul-destroying and extremely disheartening. When Anaheim chose not to qualify him after his entry-level contract, Sherwood once again had to find a new opportunity. In 2020, he signed with the Colorado Avalanche organization. The previous pattern continued. Sherwood played limited games with the Avalanche while spending much of his time with the Colorado Eagles in the AHL. Although his NHL numbers remained modest, he delivered one of the best offensive seasons of his career in the AHL. During the 2021 to 2022 season, he scored 75 points in 57 games for the Eagles. This performance kept him firmly on the radar as a player capable of helping an NHL lineup. Another change came in the summer of 2022 when Sherwood signed with the Nashville Predators. In Nashville, he began to settle into a clearer identity as an NHL player. He was still moving between the leagues, though, moving between the Predators and their AHL affiliate, the Milwaukee Admirals, but he gradually earned a reputation as an energetic winger who could pressure defensemen, stir up momentum, and bring physical energy to a lineup. By 2023 to 2024 season, he played 68 NHL games and recorded 27 points. Although these numbers did not place him among the league stars, they did establish him as a reliable depth forward who coaches trusted in demanding situations. The next significant step in his career came on the 1st of July 2024, when Sherwood signed a 2-year contract with the Vancouver Canucks. I believe it was under $2 million. I should have double-checked that. Under head coach Rick Tocchet, he produced the most productive season of his career. In the 2024-2025 season, Sherwood scored 19 goals and 40 points while playing all 78 games. He became known in Vancouver as one of the most relentless forecheckers on the roster. During his media availability today, he said that season included a moment that Sherwood still remembers clearly. He said that he'd never told anyone this before, but that the coach had pulled him aside in New Jersey when he was going through some ups and downs in his game. Sherwood says, "He basically told me not to settle for just being good. He said something like, 'You can be a $5 million player.'" Sherwood said that these words surprised him. He says, "As a player, you don't really focus on that stuff because it can be a distraction. You try to focus on playing. But to have a coach say something like that, I'd never had a coach instill that kind of belief in me before, or even put that possibility out there." Sherwood says that for most of his career, he had not been thinking about ceilings or long-term contracts. He says, "Before that, I was always just trying to scratch and claw to make it." He says that the conversation stayed with him. To have a coach give you that belief and say don't settle, keep pushing yourself, that stayed with me. So Sherwood continued playing the same demanding style in Vancouver, even when the environment around the team became increasingly turbulent. During his time there, the Canucks were dealing with the after effects of several well-publicized personality and leadership disputes inside the room. Earlier on, there had been tension involving JT Miller and captain Bo Horvat, which ultimately ended with Horvat being traded in 2023. By the time Sherwood arrived, a different set of rumors dominated coverage. Repeated speculation about friction between Miller and Elias Pettersson, and questions about the direction of the locker room leadership. Media discussion around the team often focused as much on those dynamics as on the results on the ice. The 2025-2026 season itself began badly and continued to get worse to the point of being disastrous. This season, the Canucks have struggled in the standings and are basically bottom of the league as at the time of this video. Frustration has only grown amongst fans and commentators, and the club has been in the news cycle almost daily. Things continue to get worse for the Canucks, with the eventual departure of major figures, including captain Quinn Hughes. This only added to the sense that the organisation was going through a very difficult transition, if not down the toilet completely. Throughout all of this, from what I can gather, Sherwood's approach did not visibly change. Night after night, he kept doing the same job he'd done throughout his career. Forechecking hard, finishing checks, chasing pucks, and playing his role with the same work rate, regardless of the score or the headlines surrounding the team. I noticed this very much when there was commentary surrounding his trade, because a lot of the Vancouver fans were saying that he was the only one that didn't seem to give up or phone in his performance even when things were going horribly. In January 2026, the Vancouver Canucks traded Sherwood to the San Jose Sharks in exchange for 2 second-round draft picks and a minor league defenseman. One thing to note is that Sherwood was not claimed from waivers or added as a temporary depth piece. Sharks general manager Mike Grier actively chose to bring him into the organization and specifically said that he felt that the Sharks needed someone like Kiefer Sherwood in the organization. Sherwood understood what that meant and has said, "I'm really grateful to Mike Grier, the management group, and the whole organization for believing in me. That's a lot of faith to place in a player." He then added, "You want to be somewhere where you're wanted and appreciated." The thing was, after he arrived in San Jose, things were still not entirely calm. Given that there was a lot of open speculation about his contract renewal. A lot of people were speculating that he might get flipped before the trade deadline because it was rumored that he was asking for a contract of around $30 million. There were also many Sharks fans who were critical of his early games on the first line with Macklin Celebrini because they had not seemed to make it work and he hadn't produced enough offence in that role. Nonetheless, as of today, Sherwood has signed a 5-year contract extension worth $28.75 million. Of course, the contract has immediately triggered debate from a purely contractual and numbers perspective. Sherwood is 30 years old and projects as a middle six power forward on a competitive team. In a salary cap league, those numbers are always going to be discussed. But for me, whether someone personally thinks that Sherwood's contract is good value or not is almost beside the point. Contracts in the NHL are always going to be debated constantly and to death. What I find encouraging is something slightly different. I think it's interesting that a player who followed this kind of path can still reach this level of success in the league, even though he's not considered one of the star or generational players who attracts all of the attention. Sherwood spent 8 professional seasons moving between organisations, fighting for roster spots and taking advantage of every opportunity that appeared. Now an NHL team that is on the rise has committed to him for the long term. I'm not doing this video just because I think Sherwood seems like a decent human being, although for the following reasons, I actually do think he seems like probably a nice person. He works hard, he's very respectful. In his interviews, he's very thoughtful and tries to give answers to the media, even when they're being annoyingly repetitive and asking stupid questions. He even thanks the media for their time and treats them with a degree of courtesy and kindness I don't see a lot of players doing. I also like the fact that even though he has a reputation as a hitter, someone who is physical, apparently he only delivers clean hits. This suggests to me that he is honourable and fair, and that is very consistent with what I like about Macklin Celebrini's game, that he tries to play the game fairly. I also like the fact that he has a reputation for not giving up. For me, this is a very admirable trait. Professional hockey is full of players who work extremely hard and never reach this point. And that is one reason why Sherwood's story stands out. It is an example of what can happen when persistence and opportunity finally meet at the right moment. In Sherwood's case, the approach has never really changed. As I said earlier, he described it very simply. Show up, put the work boots on, do the job again tomorrow, rinse and repeat. Probably the sad thing is that the reason this story is so remarkable and interesting is that it is quite unusual.